In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the architecture of Asheville, North Carolina. Of course, a couple of famous places there, if you know. But we'll get to that. First, the population demographics. And Asheville, of course, suffering all sorts of catastrophic devastation near the end of 2024. And I didn't know a lot about this location. And notice when you look at the population demographics, modern day we're not even at 100,000 people. When we turn the clocks back to 1900, we're just under 15,000 people. And we don't have a lot of population really there going back into those last couple decades of the 19th century. And if you're familiar with the channel, you'll know that I like to view the past through the lens of the old world, and how there was a layering going on down through time of a new world on top of that old world. And we see glimpses of that in the architecture and infrastructure in many of these old photos. Here's a good one. We have the streetcars in Asheville, and of course the new world motor cars clogging up the laneways in Asheville. But you can see when you look at the infrastructure, the rail lines certainly seem to have been a part of the original design of these streets, much like many of the buildings as well. Looking very well manicured and groomed. Again, remember Asheville, a small city. I did read it becomes a bit of a resort vacation style getaway in the American South as we get into the 20s. This is apparently a school that was built. Now we have a date of somewhere in the 20s, I believe, on this one. We'll see that again moving forward. A bird's eye view from 1912, at a time when Asheville would have had about 20,000 people. And we do get a couple depictions of industry, large industrial locations, and then when you look on the bird's eye view, you can see the style of building being portrayed in some of this. We have the old courthouse, we'll see that later as well. Some churches, no shortage of churches in so many of these small American cities. And this would be the central square with the symbolic obelisk in the middle. My suggestion being that the obelisk being placed here to signify the takeover of the old world. But you can see here the types of buildings that existed in Asheville. You have that stone structure style building here in the City Hall. We'll see that again as well. City Hall / firehouse, and in the surrounding areas. And zooming in a little closer, again we have that obelisk and the newer City Hall, built almost in the same fashion as the obelisk, having a bit of an Art Deco feel, that being some sort of strange crossover period, I think, in the overlaying of the timelines. You can see here, it looks like a frozen over fountain. Again, I've hypothesized that the old fountains a part of the energetic system of the old world infrastructure, and many of them have been replaced with things like the monument we've seen. In this case, the fountain's still there at the time of the photograph. And then you can see, of course, here in the corner of the building, a really indicative feature of the old world, completely built for form and function, but not something that we do in the modern day. And these old photographs give us a good view of the wear and tear at that early time period of the infrastructure in Asheville. Looking very old. Again, remember, if we go back to 1850, you've got 500 people here, so we're supposed to believe that all of this is quite new. And again, we're seeing curb work, stone curb work, looking like it's been there for a very, very long time. Yet we have dirt roads, indicating, are we seeing some sort of mud that's settled everywhere? And is this an uncovering of the old world? There's one of the courthouses we're going to be taking a look at as well. Several different generations of courthouses in Asheville. The central square yet again. You can see the streetcar, a large part of life in Asheville. Here we are looking at the Battery Park Hotel, the original Battery Park Hotel, built in 1886. We are told it was the first hotel in the South with an electric elevator and one of the first with electric lighting. Notable guests at this hotel include the Rockefeller family and George Vanderbilt himself, who was notorious with the connection to the Biltmore Estate we saw earlier on in the video. We'll be taking a look at as we move forward. We also have an uncertain and hazy story of how this hotel met its demise. Some accounts report a fire inducing the demolition, and others just say that it was demolished because a new Battery Park Hotel was built. And that happened in the 20s, we are told. Very early time period, only standing for about 40 years. A very interesting looking hotel. And of course, very difficult to build at an early time period. Here we have the notorious Biltmore Estate. We are told built by George Washington Vanderbilt between 1889 and 1895. Again, not many people living in Asheville at the time. Architect Richard Morris Hunt gets recruited for the design, and Frederick Law Olmsted gets recruited for the landscape. Of course, only the best of the best for the Vanderbilts. And we are told 1,000 workers and about 60 stonemasons were employed in the construction of this castle. And again, at a time when there was only really 10,000 people living there. 15,000. No, 10,000. We are told. So this would have been some sort of mega project that a large portion of the town was abandoning their homes to work on. I don't know. Seems a bit far-fetched. I don't think they factored in the populations here. This is definitely reminding me of something that we'd expect to see in somewhere like France, having that blend of chateau roof styling and that cathedral-esque detailing that we see on so many of these religious-style buildings. You can even see the gargoyles coming off the roof line here. Apparently the largest privately owned house in the United States by square foot. Still owned by George Vanderbilt's descendants, we are told. And we get all sorts of paintings, and we have an underground swimming pool, infamous swimming pool, this one. If you know, you know. I'll just keep moving forward on that. We have a library, amazing looking library, reminding me of the spiral staircase in the Des Moines Capitol Building Library. Des Moines, Iowa. That's a spectacular structure in itself. We can see here all the paintings. Of course, the narrative goes that Vanderbilt had such taste that he brought a lot of this stuff over from Europe and had it installed in his mansion. And this is a depiction, apparently, of the mansion under construction. Make of it what you will. We're going to keep moving forward. I'm not going to dwell on this. I know Mind Unveiled channel did a very extensive video on the Biltmore Estate. I believe experienced flooding, this structure, in 2024. But I think it is open again for tours and things like that, as far as I know. But certainly not something you'd expect to be constructed in such a small city at that time period. Again, in that classic early 1890s time period where everything was going up everywhere at the same time. So we just have to make the assumption that there's a plentiful amount of stonemasons everywhere with the skill set and know-how to do all of this work. The storyline becomes very far-fetched, really. We'll keep moving forward, taking a look at some of the churches here, and we will see a few of these moving forward. An interesting view of Montford Avenue in Asheville with the streetcars. Again, such small cities and such well-laid infrastructure. Alright, and if you see the postcard, if you're familiar with my channel, you'll know that it's likely because I could not find a photograph of that location. This First Christian Church, I could find nothing else on this one. Pretty nice looking stone church. Something you would think would be held onto and celebrated in such a small city. The Glenrock Hotel. Again, giving us that glimpse of the streetcar narrative and turret in the corner. The old high school with its tower. The Central Methodist Church. This one is no slouch, to be sure. We have a timeline here, 1902 to 1904. That's a 2-year build time at a time when the population of Asheville is about 15,000 people. They apparently had the skill set in the area and were able to construct such a building in 2 years. Notice that it mimics the Biltmore styling and a lot of the roof and the decorations that you see on it. And this photograph should be enough to get you scratching your head on some of the stories we're told about how long it took and how many people lived there and the rest of it. Central Methodist Church. This is the City Hall. Starts going up at the same time that Biltmore is being constructed, 1892. Very, very short window of time here on this one. We have just over 30 years that this one stood. We saw it earlier with the 3 bays here for the fire station. And everywhere else that I found it, we have this dome structure having been removed. Again, notice the fountain, prominent fountain, centrally located. And not a lot of evidence remaining of this one as well, but this would have been certainly a centerpiece of Asheville, North Carolina. Here we're looking at one of the courthouses. We saw this one earlier. When we saw it earlier, it looked like this, so it had the little cupola removed. There's your timeline on the courthouse there, 1877. Less than 2,000 people living in Asheville, and apparently they tore it down in 1903 because the hustle and bustle got to be too much and they had to upsize. There's that old City Hall again. It really looking like a bit of a witch's hat, which I think is quite fitting for Asheville, as we'll see moving forward. The 7th courthouse, of course the one we looked at was the 6th. This is the one that comes right after. Bit of a hole in the narrative there with the demolition and construction of this one. It's almost an instant courthouse that pops up and only stands for 27 years. We'll keep moving forward. No shortage of large brick and stone structures in Asheville. All par for the course when we look at the old world. Of course, if you know anything about the area itself, please feel free to add that in the comment section. We have the Southern Railway Station. It's a eye-catching dome in the middle, having a bit of almost a Middle Eastern feel there, Eastern European maybe. And there's another look at that fire hall / city hall, and again, just to give you a sense of the architecture here. And this photo, I think, really indicating to me that these individuals here really have no idea how this was built. back here, in this having been standing for quite some time. The First Baptist Church, a unique structure. In my research, I haven't seen a lot with this look. Very interesting. Certainly worth looking at. Likely, hard to say, somewhere in between. Again, that in-between period, they'll say this was built in the 20s, most likely. Yeah, built in 1925 to 1927. Less than 30,000 people living there at the time. Building domed churches, because why not? Another spectacular looking hotel, the Grove Park Inn. Having a bit of a strange look too, with this sort of curved. This one definitely feeling like maybe a mimicry or a mockery of the old world, looking very rustic. Here's a modern look at it, certainly looking like it's been pieced together. Not having that same energy or cohesion that you see in a lot of what I would consider to be the old world style structures. And we also got a construction photo of this one, and this is what I expect construction photos to look like. Quite a bit of action going on here, a lot of false work, a lot of bracing that makes sense, practical looking, and somewhat clear. So that is a construction photo I can get behind, and that's 1913, so you can't tell me that so many of these structures we've seen in this research shouldn't have construction photos of this quality. This is a small town, small city in 1913. Less than 20,000 people living there at the time. Here's the high school I was talking about, the Lee H. Edwards High School. Interesting looking structure as well. The George Vanderbilt Hotel, named in the memory of late George Vanderbilt, that Vanderbilt family. Definitely famed robber baron family, like we come across a lot of the other robber baron names on this channel. I did do a video on, I believe it was the Marble House, attributed to Cornelius Vanderbilt. You can look that one up in my catalog as well. So interesting influence the Vanderbilts had on the America as we know it. I have this down as the library, the Pack Memorial Library. Now it looks like we have a timeline starting in the 1890s again on this one, and this one not really making it into the 20s even. Could be wrong, a little bit hazy on that one. What do we notice? And when we zoom in, we see the lower reaches. 1890s, they were really big on basement entry, apparently, and raised doorways. And we get these gentlemen with their cathedral. It's a religion, apparently. And here you get a bit of a look at the brickwork and the roads, how extensive that is, again, for such a small town. Very interesting. And this thing still stands, and you get a sense of how well built it is. But we will continue to move forward onto the post office. Again, one of those structures that are fitting that very, very short timeline. Now, this really reminding me, this location reminding me of Birmingham, Alabama, with a lot of these large structures going up at a time where there weren't a lot of people there and being torn down in a very short window. Completely illogical when you think about the amount of work it would take to build such a structure and to demolish such a structure. And again, you have that lower entry area, and there it is being demolished in 1932. So a historical cover-up of biblical proportions is the assertion here on the Old World Exploration channel. Something very difficult for us to wrap our heads around. Here we're looking at the Sealy Castle. Trying to do some research on this location, and for some things I've heard about it, I came across this article, which I'll put a link to in the description. Some interesting and very dark stories that mirror the stories you hear about the Biltmore Estate as well. Some strange goings on in that region of North Carolina on into Tennessee, I believe. It makes you wonder, was there an element that needed washing away? Just speculating, of course. The Overlook Castle was also the name. It certainly looks ruined. It certainly does not look like it's in its original condition when you look at some of the interiors. You have a really spectacular ceiling. And again, the ceilings themselves. Again, 1910 as well. Or it's 19 teens, sorry. Very early time period. Not a lot of people living here, and they're just throwing up this type of architecture. No problem in Asheville, North Carolina. It gets donated apparently to the college there for a time. Moving on to the St. Lawrence Basilica, built in 1905. In 1905, Asheville has a population of about 15,000 people, yet they are building basilicas, like something you would expect to see in Poland or wherever else in Europe. Impeccable brickwork, like we've seen on the Masonic Hall. Statues, and then there's a look at the interior and that herringbone woven brick pattern in the ceiling area. That's really ridiculous to suggest that. This was built in 1905. Such a small city. I'd have trouble believing this could be somewhere in Poland, and they could tell me this was built in the 1600s, and I would nod my head and say, why, yes, of course, that makes a lot of sense. But this is in Asheville, North Carolina. An interesting multi-layered effect here as well. Some pretty intricate construction on this thing. And what I believe to be a stone facading going on here. I could be wrong. It could be stone, but I think a lot of the time that's what we're seeing there. We'll keep moving forward. We're almost done the file. Couple photos to go. Grove Arcade. This one, very neat looking structure, having some interesting detailing. Something we don't do in the modern day. This one here is the one I wanted to feature, the Wachovia, not sure how you say that. I believe it's a bank. It still stands in the modern day. Just an example, and I suspect a lot of structures like this were erased from history. Look at all the detailing, the angels going on here. Looking very worn, looking like maybe it's ready for the wrecking ball. But they've managed to save this one. So much detail, and it really doesn't make a lot of sense. Nothing really making sense, certainly not the date that they say this was built. Thanks for watching.
This has been an old world exploration. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, and comment. I believe we are in the process of remembering who we really are and casting off the shackles of illusion. Until next time.